What is critical race theory?
Critical race theory, I'm supposed to be nice to it. Critical race theory describes itself as a movement, which is an odd thing for a theory to describe itself as, but is a movement that tries to reassess the relationship between race, racism, and power in society. And that's a very friendly way to put it. It's a view that takes the position that racism is systemic in society. It's not a matter necessarily of individual intention or individual action, although certainly individuals can act or be racist or act in racist ways. But it views racism ultimately as a system that operates in society at every level, whether that's through individual actions, whether it's through social norms, whether it's through the way that we talk and think about things, whether it's what we consider knowledge, whether it's our institutions, whether that's criminal justice, or whether that's schooling or any other institution that you might imagine, the government itself. Every level, every single thing has racism taken as its ordinary state of affairs, according to critical race theory. That's the first underlying assumption of critical race theory. Racism is it's systemic in the ordinary state of affairs in society, not an aberration from them. So racism is the default. In other words, guilty until proven innocent of racism in any circumstance. It's a very worrying ideology. There are lots of other principles we could talk about in detail, however long you want to go on about it, but it's a very worrying ideology that I think libertarians in particular should be aware of and concerned about, because it's pretty inimical to libertarian thought completely. In that, first of all, it's collectivist. It separates people according to racial categories and asks them to consider themselves as representatives or avatars of racial collectives. So it's collectivist in that sense. It's not individualist. But it also, and this is a statement that I can quote pretty close to from memory, from the book Critical Race Theory and Introduction, which was written by two critical race theorists that have some significance, Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanchik. And on page 3, literally the first paragraph, they say that where they describe what critical race theory is, they say that unlike traditional approaches to civil rights, which favor incremental progress and step-by-step progress, critical race theory questions the very foundations of the liberal order. And by liberal here, we actually mean the same thing that other countries call libertarian, or liberal and libertarian are very similar. We're talking about classical liberalism at its roots. And what do they name as the very foundations of the liberal order? They say including equality theory. So we're going to question equality. They list legal reasoning, so rule of law. Enlightenment rationalism, so the idea that human beings are rational agents who can set their own course. That's going to be questioned at its very foundation. And then last, they list the neutral principles of constitutional law. So we're going to question the idea of constitutional law, and especially the idea of applying it neutrally without, say, identity or race-based consciousness attached to it. On page 23 of that book, they start out a rather ominous paragraph with saying crits, meaning critical race theorists, are highly suspicious of another liberal mainstay, namely rights. And that's a direct quote. They are highly suspicious of rights. So they're a collectivist ideology that uses race as its collectivist proxy, that's highly suspicious of things like constitutional law, rationalism, equality, rule of law in particular, and rights, individual rights.